nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell here with my co-host Glenn Martin and a familiar face on the show, and a friend of the show, Jeff Risdon from the BrownsWire, managing editor, and the LionsWire. He wears a lot of hats, not wearing a hat right now, but we are excited to get into week one. Football is here. Of course, the Ravens going up against the Cleveland Browns, a familiar foe. So we're going to break it down and hope to get your perspective from the Cleveland Browns point of view. So Glenn, I'm going to let you kick it off.
All right. Well, Jeff, thanks again for coming on with us. This is a big year for Baker. And, with the new offense coming in, that's where I want to start. How does Baker look so far in the new Stefanski offense?
So far, so good in what little we've seen of him. And I think, the limited view is probably good for Baker, quite honestly. Learning Kevin Stefanski's offense, it's a different offense than what he was asked to do under Freddie Kitchens or Greg Williams before him or Hugh Jackson before him. It's his fourth head coach in 3 years. So it's tough to take any sense of continuity with Baker. But one of the things that he's doing is that it seems like he's making the proper read against the defense. Now, it's the Browns defense, so we don't know how that looks yet to judge that. But it seems like he is figuring out what he needs to do. He handled pressure better in training camp than he did last year. Last year, you've all saw it. Falling away, seeing ghosts, throwing off his back foot, making the wrong read, not being decisive with the ball. That wasn't much of an issue. I won't say it was gone this summer, but it wasn't as much of an issue as it was. And that's very good progress for Baker because he regressed last year. There's no way to candy coat that. But, if he's somewhere between where he was in 2019 and 2018, I think the Browns will be pretty happy because that's a guy that you can still win with.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, you guys have a star-studded roster, and of course, probably the most important position group in that roster is the O-line, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure in yours as well. What are your expectations of the offensive line with the new improvements at tackle?
Oh, man. It's hard to describe how much better they got at tackle, and that's never seeing Jedrick Wills play a snap at left tackle in his entire life yet. It's still hard to imagine him being worse than Greg Robinson was, and Greg Robinson's in federal prison now. I mean, Wills is a mauler, but he's also a tactician. He's been working a lot with Joe Thomas. There's no better tackle in the 21st century than Joe Thomas. That's a pretty good teacher to have with.
Yeah.
He seems to get it. He seems to be a pretty good scheme fit. They have Bill Callahan, the veteran line coach, in. He did wonders with Trent Williams, who's a guy who had much of the same background. He's done it with a lot of other guys. So he's going to have some foibles, that's for sure. But it's a much more stable position. And then right tackle, Jack Conklin over Chris Hubbard. Whew, I mean, that's going from like junior high to instant BCS level.
SEC,
Yeah, I mean, Jack Conklin is on his best day an above-average tackle. Most days he's an average right tackle. He gets overhyped by PFF, and I get that. That's okay. But he's just so good at the run blocking and understanding he can block to his left. Chris Hubbard could never figure out how to down block. It just never was something there for him. So that's a huge help. Hubbard will be the depth, although he's probably going to be out. He didn't practice today on Wednesday. And hasn't looked good. So they have Kendall Lamb as their swing. So hopefully they can stay on the field because Kendall Lamb is not all that good. But the tackle, I can't tell you how much that's going to help Baker Mayfield too. Baker saw the ghost last year. It bothered him. He needs stability. He needs reliability at tackle, and he should have that. It might not show right away in week one, but I think over the course of the season, it's a monumental upgrade for the Browns.
And with Jedrick Wills, do you expect them to give him some help? Obviously he's a talented player, but when you're talking about your NFL debut, being against a guy like Calais Campbell, how much is he going to be getting some help? Because that's a big hill to climb there.
Yeah, and I thought Calais Campbell's quote on it was great. He showed him a lot of respect and is like, yeah, I'm ready to teach him something too. That's trial by fire. I will go back to the other team that I covered for a second, the Detroit Lions. They had Taylor Decker as a first-round tackle. And his first game was up against it was in Arizona at the time. But it wound up being really, really bad for Taylor Decker. But he wound up going beyond that and he's now a very good tackle. So they do learn. They will give him help. Austin Hooper, it's the new tight end. He is a good one. He's a very good one. He is going to catch a lot of passes. The hope is that he can also line up in line and gyp somebody on the way out. They will need to do that because the way that the Ravens play defense, you're going to have to help. You can't leave Wills as a rookie playing a new position without help. There could be some full backup. They have Andy Janovich in there now. He's a good one. That Kareem Hunt as a pass protector is great. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. So they have ways of helping, but it's going to be a challenge for him, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, I would have been knowing that Calais Campbell's my first live action. I would have been kicking and screaming for some preseason games. Obviously, I get the situation; it is what it is. Yeah, but man, you're talking about jumping in the deep end.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Calais, nothing but love for Calais Campbell and all he's done in his career. He's one of those self-made guys too. He wasn't like super touted coming out and just kept getting better and better and better all the time. And he showed no sign of age last year, so I'm expecting big things from him, which is unfortunate for Cleveland, but it's very good for y'all.
Well, we're hoping for the same thing. Now, one of the other guys we want to talk about is Odell Beckham Jr. He's healthy now, but one of the things that's important to realize is that there's only one football. You guys have a long list when it comes to stars at skill positions. Now that he's healthy, what do you think a good year looks like for him, and what are the fans' expectations for him this year?
The latter question is a tough one because he is not universally embraced in Cleveland, I think, the way that a lot of people think he was. And he sort of had that in New York, too, even when he was great. So he caught over 1,000 yards last year in a bad year when he couldn't practice, didn't know the offense. He was just basically out there running on his own. So he could easily be a top 10 production receiver again, even top 5. He's capable of making the ridiculous catch. He makes it look easy. If you ever get a chance to watch him in practice, it's an absolute show. He's there to put on a show, and he gets that. And I think that's something that he didn't really get to do that much last year. Jarvis Landry was better than him last year. This year, I think Odell Beckham retakes that crown. And they've been best friends for, since going to LSU together. Last year was the first year where Landry really was like, yeah, I got you. I think Odell's going to get him back this year. And that tandem, I tell you what, I don't think Landry gets enough love for what he did last year. He upped his yards per catch by 2 yards per catch. That's not easy to do when you're getting the volume of catches that he does. He's a really good player. He is the leader of the offense. I know Baker Mayfield's the quarterback and the focal point. When they are rallying on the sideline, it's Jarvis Landry that leads that. And Odell Beckham is a very willing lieutenant to help that. And I think that's something that is very important for Odell. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people in Cleveland liked the move because they had a guy like Odell who could maybe, quote unquote, handle Odell as much as you can. Right. I think it's going to be much, much better this year. I think he's a really good fit. So it's Kevin Stefanski's offense. It's the Gary Kubiak offense. They play 2 wide receivers almost exclusively. You will not see the third receiver much. And so you're looking at what he had in Minnesota. He had Stephon Diggs and he had Adam Thielen. Well, I think both Landry and Beckham are more talented than those guys, and that's not a slight against Thielen or Diggs either. So they could do a lot of damage this year.
Yeah, they're certainly a tandem to be reckoned with, and another tandem is the running back room. We just saw the Browns extend Kareem Hunt, making it clear that they value having 2 stud running backs in Cleveland. So, and I guess we kind of saw this last year with the amount of catches Kareem Hunt received when he came back from suspension. But how they keep both running backs involved and keep them both happy, and is that how they complement one another?
Yeah, it is. So when Kareem came back last year, he got 44 passing targets. He caught 37 of them, and he got 43 carries. And I think that's roughly what he's going to get again, double that up. And I think he'll get right around 100 of each, which leaves, 200-ish carries for Chubb. Their number 3 running back is Dearness Johnson. He's not an NFL player, so it's just going to be the 2 of them. There's Chubb is. I tell you what, Chubb is angry that he lost the rush. He had a 112-yard lead on Derrick Henry going into week 16 last year, and wound up losing by over 100. And one of those games was in Baltimore, where the Ravens got him payback because if you remember the first time that they played last year, Chubb ran wild. And he can do that again. He is so tough to bring down. He does not go down on the first tackle attempt. It's remarkable how good he is at that. He's sort of a big play home run hitter. Kareem's a different kind of runner. I would compare him actually to Mark Ingram a little bit in the fact that he's a balanced inside guy, solid. He can take a hit. He's not going to run away from anybody, but he's not going to be easy to bring down either. And he's got beautiful hands, runs actual routes out of the backfield. He's not just a guy who can float out into space and catch passes. He can play slot receiver if you need him to. So there is enough room for touches for both of them. To your earlier point, though, and you mix in Odell and Jarvis, and you mix in Austin Hooper, and it's a 2 tight end offense, and they love rookie Harrison Bryant, and David Njoku's still around. It's going to be an interesting dynamic how those get spread around. Is it going to be, are we going to try to get everybody roughly equal touches all the week, or is there going to be a week where, Chubb carries 26 times and Hunt gets 5 catches, and that's it? That we still don't know that. That was what we were hoping preseason would do. So we're going to learn that one on the fly together. They seem to do a pretty good job of doing that in Minnesota with a similar type of cast. I will say that Cleveland's is much more talented than that, but it's a challenge for a rookie head coach. And Alex Van Pelt as the offensive coordinator, he doesn't know any of these guys either. So it's just say it was a bad year to have an overhaul of your offense. Even as talented as one as Cleveland's is, it's probably going to lead to some growing pains. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that you guys definitely already have the all personalities team, right?
Oh, yeah. They are a treat to cover, and I'll tell you what, I know it's tough for Baltimore fans to acknowledge that Cleveland might be fun to watch. It's a fun football team.
That would take a lot of objectivity for Ravens fans too.
Yes, it would.
I can tell you what, when you name off the list, I imagine myself as a Browns fan, as much as I can, and it's exciting to think about.
You see why Browns fans are excited about why and they're like, we got a shot this year, and when you look at all that talent that they've got on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, I'm not going to tell them not to be excited about that. I mean, this is a team that 3 years ago, I was in training camp, and it was Corey Coleman and Kenny Britt fighting for passes from Brock Osweiler and Deshaun Kaiser and Cody Kessler.
Come a long way.
Yeah.
Come a long way.
Well, let me ask you this. You talked about a Browns fan. Glenn and I were disappointed, even though we're not Browns fans, about Delpit going down. Grant Delpit, of course, the safety. What kind of an impact, while he hasn't gone out there and played, what kind of impact do you see the lack of Delpit being on the field, him missing the whole season, having on the defense?
Yeah, no, it's tough because he was going to be the number one safety. I know that they do have Andrew Sendejo in, quality veteran, average starter, really good as your third safety, and I think that's where they really wanted him. Carl Joseph, you're praying to God that he can stay in one piece. He doesn't do that very often, but when he has, he's been pretty good as a coverage safety back in his Raiders days. So Delpit was going to be the guy who sort of unified that and kept those guys in their spots on the depth chart where they needed to be. Now you're asking them to be the 1 and the 2, and that's higher than what they need to be. They did trade for Ronnie Harrison and stole him from Jacksonville, and that is Cleveland's benefit that there's a worse owner out there than their own who lives in Jacksonville. And they thieved a starting safety on the eve of the season. I don't know how well he's going to acclimate right away, but he is, in theory, a very good complement a very good replacement for Delpit. He can play that hybrid linebacker role. He can go downhill. He's a good box safety. You don't necessarily want him to turn and run in coverage, but he's not without capabilities there. So they got really, really lucky that Jacksonville is a train wreck, quite honestly.
Yeah. It seems like they are doing everything they can in Jacksonville to make sure they get the number 1 overall pick. And I kind of feel bad for Gardner, but we'll see how he performs.
And he's easy to like and root for, too.
He is. Yeah. And it seems like, man, he'd have to really show out this year for them not to take Trevor Lawrence. But I guess if he does, then that would be a heck of an opportunity to trade back, acquire a boatload of picks, and still get the best player that's not a quarterback in the draft. But
I tell you what, man, to diverge into Jacksonville just for a second, they are 9.5 point underdogs this week at home. This might be the only time all year they're not double-digit underdogs.
Oh.
That's how bad that team is. I was talking. I do a radio show here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We had a gambling guy on today and a bookmaker, and he laid that on us, and we're like, wow, that's how bad they are.
Yeah, they taken tanking to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, after the Browns signed Austin Hooper, the initial reports it was Njoku wanted out. He wasn't happy, but they seem to have died down. I'm guessing Stefanski said, "Look, why don't you look at what I did in Minnesota, and you see that 2 tight ends play quite often in my offense." So, is Njoku now happy to be a Cleveland Brown? Is he? What's the thoughts on him?
So he was happy for a couple of weeks when he was still the second tight end, but Harrison Bryant passed him on the depth chart, and that's so it's the unofficial depth chart. Keep that in mind. I don't know how the Ravens coaches handle that. The Browns, well, we don't know how the Browns coaches do either because they're new. In the past, most of the time, the Browns handed that to some guy like 5 minutes before and like, hey, dude, you go fill that out and turn it in.
Right. PR department does for the Ravens.
And they're good people too. If they're serious about having Harrison Bryant on the number 2 line, and I tell you what, he's a really good receiver. He's a 4th-round rookie out of Florida Atlantic. He can play as a slot receiver in a tight end's body, or a tight end in a slot receiver's body, one of those two. Njoku is not a blocker. He has come back. He's been healthy, but he is one of those guys. He is a ridiculous physical specimen. If you've ever seen him without a shirt on, and if you see him in public, he probably isn't wearing a shirt, and for good reason. Those guys tend to be high maintenance with their injury status. He's one of those guys where like, oh, I felt a little twinge right here in my rib. I better not practice for a couple of days, and that's a tough way to be in the NFL. I'm not saying he's without talent. I'm not calling him soft or anything. It's just that there's a different mindset with this. I saw with Brian Cushing down in Houston was the same way. That was a guy who would actually stop practice because he had to go eat 3 almonds at a specified time. That's a true story.
Wow. Yeah.
He would run off the field in the middle of a rep to go eat his almonds and then get back in. That's those nutrition freaks like that, and Njoku is one of those guys. I wouldn't say that football isn't important, but it's not their overriding purpose for being alive like you want from your NFL players. And I say that, I realize how horrible that sounds, but that's what we want from our football players.
Right.
He's not that guy, and I'm not sure if that's going to keep him in Cleveland all that long. Having said that, too, he's really good at what he does. He is a very good red zone threat. He is athletic. He rescinded his trade offer, which was made by Drew Rosenhaus about 20 minutes after he hired Drew Rosenhaus, so that sort of tells you where that motivation was. I don't know what's going to happen with him. They picked up his 5th-year option. He's not unhappy outwardly. His teammates seem to like him. So if he can coexist being 2A on the depth chart, they'll keep him. But if it's going sour, if he's not happy, if he's not getting playing time, he's a very good candidate to get traded, and he will have some value. He will bring something back from another team because there will be injuries this year with all the soft tissue. We're seeing it in Cleveland already. We got some crazy injuries in Cleveland already. We got a guy with a lacerated liver. I don't know how the hell that happens, but. There's going to be a lot of that going on around the league, so there will be a market for him if they want to explore that market. And don't be surprised if they do, but also don't be surprised if they don't.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to keep your eyes on, especially not that this would happen, but I know that Glenn and I have had a lot of talk about the value of a 3rd tight end, and we lost Hayden Hurst. That's going to, I think, have a big impact on us and our deception as an offense.
Player.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have a huge year in Atlanta. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was your corners. I feel like Glenn and I both were talking about this. I feel like they have something to prove this year. What have you seen out of Denzel and then out of Greedy this offseason, and what do you expect out of him?
Denzel's been great. He's gained a little bit of bulk, which he needs. He is really, really good. I don't have to tell you guys that you've seen him. In coverage, he is allowed the 3rd lowest completion percentage in throws his way over the last 2 seasons. And he's missed a handful of games in that because he tackles poorly, and he has injured himself. He's given himself a concussion and separated his shoulder in separate incidents making tackles. That's the only real issue with him. In coverage, he's phenomenal. I would put him up against anybody in terms of pure coverage. And man coverage, he can also play zone. He can go get the ball. Just a wildly talented cornerback. And I do think you're going to see a lot of greatness out of him. I think he's going to reestablish himself as a legit number one corner this year. And he's going to get a lot more notoriety around the league. Greedy Williams on the other side is hurt right now. He had an injury last year as well. He's hurt with a shoulder. He did not practice on Wednesday. That leaves him very up in the air for Sunday. In general, I was not a huge Greedy Williams fan coming out. He wound up – I'll give him credit. He was better than I thought he would be as a rookie. He showed toughness both physically and mentally that I didn't see at LSU. So I'm happy that he's on an upward arc. He's not there yet. Right now he's probably a low-end number 2. Could certainly emerge into more than that, but I don't think you're going to see him in week 1, honestly. And that leads to problems because they brought in Kevin Johnson to play the slot. I saw Kevin Johnson in Houston. The Kevin Johnson that I watched in Houston up close and personal is not an NFL player. The guy who played in Buffalo last year is one of the best slot corners in the league. He was that guy in camp. He was the best defensive player on the field the first 2 weeks of Browns camp, and he injured his liver, of all things. He was hospitalized with a lacerated liver. He is slowly working his way back. He will not play this week. So then you go to the next guy on the depth chart. That's MJ Stewart, a guy that they got from Tampa Bay this offseason. Well, he just got to practice today for the first time in 3 weeks. He's been hurt with a hamstring. So it's going to be, maybe MJ Stewart, Denzel Ward, and then you got Terrence Money Mitchell, quality veteran backup, great number 4 cornerback. But again, like we talked about with safeties, if he's playing as your number 3 or number 2, that's higher than he needs to be on your depth chart. So that's a concern.
Well, what about any nerves about Hollywood Brown and as like you mentioned, if Greedy's out, I'm assuming that, I don't know how they're going to play, defensively if Denzel's just going to shadow him. But what are your thoughts on that matchup, Denzel Ward and Hollywood Brown? Yeah,
and that's a good question because we don't know what Joe Woods' defense is going to do either. We don't even know what their base formation is. Are they a 4-2-5? Are they a 4-3? Are they is the 5 in the 4-2-5? Is it a corner? Or is it a safety? We don't know yet. We haven't seen it. I do think that they're going to try to keep Denzel on Brown. And I think that's probably a very fun matchup to watch. It'll be up then to the other guys to beat, the Terrence Mitchells of the world, the Javier Thomas, who's primarily a special teams player and a great special teams player. But again, this is not a guy who wants to play cornerback in the NFL. I mean, I love the dude. I watched him in college here at Ferris State, and he's a great success story. But he's not ready for prime time, and at least he hasn't shown that he can be that in corner yet. So it's interesting because from a Browns perspective, other than Brown, the wide receivers in Baltimore don't really scare you. I'm not going to say that they're bad, but I'm going to say that you're more worried about a lot of other things on that offense. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and one guy could really help those corners, of course, is Myles Garrett, who just had the Brinks truck backed up to his front door not too long ago. And I'm guessing that extension helped keep him out of retirement after the helmet incident because I heard he was considering that, which was pretty surprising to hear. But other than him staying on the field and off suspension, how else can Garrett improve and help get this team to the playoffs?
God, he's really good, guys. He's I don't get to cover guys that have that much ability very often. I cover the Browns and the Lions. Calvin Johnson was that way as a wide receiver. I missed Barry Sanders. I'm not that old. It's a treat to watch him operate. He can do things that other humans just can't do. And he has learned how to apply those to a football field pretty well from his first season. When he came in, he really only had 2 or 3 moves. Now he's got the shoulder dip, he's got the rip, he's got the club, he's got the Reggie White move. He's got the full arsenal. The best thing that he can do is learn to work more in tandem with the guys around him. He hasn't played well when he's been asked to loop inside or stunt or go on those gimmicks. He's much better just attacking on his own. They have talent around him. Sheldon Richardson's a really good defensive tackle. Larry Ogunjobi, really good defensive tackle, who's going to get paid soon too. they're a good front line. They could be better if they worked more as four guys as one instead of four individual guys. And that's probably the best area where Garrett can improve. But man, he is certainly going to be a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year if he stays in the field for 16 games, because he's a monster, guys. He's really, really good.
Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, because you mentioned PFF earlier and how obviously everyone has their own different grading. What I find surprising is PFF never really grades him as a great run defender, despite the fact that he's this physical freak. And you look over in Pittsburgh, on the other hand, and Watt, they say that he can do both. He's a great run defender as well as that great pass rusher that him and Garrett are.
Yeah.
So why is it that he doesn't grade well as a run defender?
And I think a little of that is sort of what I alluded to, in that he's often on an island. And that's some of his creation, is that he will win on a run play, but it's not necessarily helping the team overall stop the run, if that makes sense.
Okay.
If you were involved in the Twitter kerfuffle on Tuesday where ESPN was trying to claim that Aaron Donald was not a good run defender, and they showed plays of him absolutely destroying the run, Garrett falls victim to some of that too, actually, in that he will actually win too fast, and it will disrupt the play enough that it winds up not looking like he did much. It doesn't happen all the time, but that happens. And he will not handle double teams well. He has been content to just soak up if a tight end. If they're going to keep a tight end in and block on him, he's okay with that. And, let the guys behind him win that. Considering the guys that are behind him now, he probably needs to do a little bit more to win those.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So one of the things we wanted to ask you, and I think this will be the shortest question of the day. What are this season, what are your expectations for the Browns? I just made it longer.
Why is that short? Why is that short?
I'm just reading through it. I'm like, yeah, that's a one-liner, baby. What are your expectations for the Browns this season, man?
So they're going to be entertaining. They will be there's too much talent for them to be bad. And I think what you saw last year was about as bad as they can be with as much talent as they have. They are really, really awkward, I'll say, in the defensive middle of the field behind Ogunjobi and Richardson.
Yeah.
The linebacking core stinks. The safeties we talked about, they're all new. It's a new scheme. They're gonna have some troubles there, and if they can't get healthy on the outside, they're gonna have troubles there too, which will lead to a lot of shootouts and more pressure on Baker Mayfield. And your guess is as good as mine as to how he'll handle that. But they've got the weapons to make it happen. I see them. I think their floor is going 6-10 again. Kevin Stefanski has already proven that he's better as a coach in terms of organizational skills and just running the day-to-day operations of the team. He actually hired a chief of staff, Kelly Bronson. She's one of the first females to get involved in the staff. She's doing a really good job of that. She did an interview the other day, actually, which was really telling, which is like, I put out the fires. I handle all that crap so he doesn't have to. He can just worry about football. And I think that's something that Freddie never grasped. I think it's something that Hugh Jackson never grasped. Mike Pettin never grasped. Brett Jasinski never grasped. That just the laundry list of coaches all the way back to Romeo Cornell was the last real coach that they had. And that's going to help them. So I think it raised their floor. In terms of their ceiling, man, there's enough talent on this team to beat anybody, anywhere, any week. But
yeah.
They have to prove that they can do it. They got to come together. Like I said, it's a tough year to make radical changes to your coaching staff and front office and offensive line and offensive scheme. They've got the potential to do it. They really do. But I'm almost 50 years old. I'm from Cleveland. I've seen a lot of football. I've seen a lot of ways that this team can screw up. I'm convinced that they will find at least one way to screw something up that probably keeps them from catching up to Baltimore and probably Pittsburgh too.
It's so crazy, too, because if you take this roster and put it on any other team.
You give Bill Belichick that team, they're guaranteed Super Bowl favorites.
And not only that, but see how apprehensive you were to make any claims that they would be good? Any other team has this roster, and they are bold with their proclamation. They are Super Bowl or bust.
I'll tell you what, the offense has a chance to be special.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty bullish on that, and I am very bullish, as you can tell, on Myles Garrett. I think he's a monster. I know what happened in Pittsburgh. turns a lot of people off. But I got to tell you, man, this is a guy who he shows up and like volunteers as a docent at the History Museum. If your kindergarten class is walking through the Natural History Museum, Miles Garrett could be the guy leading your kids around. And that's the kind of guy he's just an awesome human being. So for him to go through that was very that was a tough blow for me personally, because I happen to love the guy, and I know it was for a lot of fans too. And I think his introspection is worthwhile on it. But yeah, I'm excited to watch it play. I'm very fascinated to see this play out. I was a early believer in Freddie Kitchens until I was at Browns training camp, and I watched him bungle press conferences and not handle position battles the way that they needed to be handled. There wasn't any sign of that with Kevin Stefanski this year. Now I was in Berea for exactly 1 day this year, so I don't have the access that I normally had, but it seems like a much more professional organization, and that goes up to the ownership too. The Haslams have not been good owners, to be blunt. They seem to be getting it, whatever it is, and that's a positive thing. I think Andrew Berry was a brilliant hire as a GM. He has got his ducks in a row. He understands what he's doing. He has a good vision. He and Stefanski seem to have the same vision, which is not something that's ever been true in this front office coach before, at least in a long time, not since the Butch Davis days, which was the last time they made the playoffs, which was 2002, which was a long, long time ago. Yeah. Hopefully they can do it again this year. They absolutely have the ability to make it happen. They really do. Yeah. But like I said, I will quote the late great Chuck Daly: "A pessimist is an optimist with experience." That's me as a Detroit Lions and Cleveland Browns guy.
Yeah, and I think Andrew Berry, you mentioned obviously a great signing, and I think it must be in the water because he grew up.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
15 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, and so I think it's just in the water. That's all it is. You know what I
mean? Absolutely.
He has made the division much more competitive right away, and I'm very happy about it. I'm rooting for him. He's made some good hires under it. I love the Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach. I think that's a great move. It seems like there's a smart plan in place. Let's hope that it translates to winning football sooner than later in Cleveland.
A young man also. He's got a chance to be there for a very long time.
34 years old. That's
a year older than me. Unbelievable.
I just worry about that guy under center, man. That's my concern.
Oh, my goodness. Look, don't even get Jimmy started on Baker because we could be here all daggone night on Baker. But
there's a lot on Baker. To his credit, he has shut the hell up.
He has, And I don't see any commercials of him cleaning the bathrooms at the stadium anymore.
No, those commercials were great, but
they were great.
He understood that isn't what this team needed. He gave a press conference today where he was I don't want to say stone-faced because he can't be, but he was very methodical in answering the questions. He thought about the question before he answered it, which is something that he hasn't always done in the past. They are trying very hard to accelerate his maturity curve, and so far, so good. He's trying to be a reflection of his head coach. Kevin Stefanski is an intense dude, but he's very measured, even-keeled. You wouldn't see it on the outside, and that's kind of what they want Baker to be. And if he can do that, he has the physical tools to be a very good quarterback. And I think we saw that in his rookie season. Last year, we saw the worst of both his physical and his mental traits. So let's hope that he rebounds back. Is it a given that he will? No. But I'm pretty confident he will at least be better than he was last year. Is that good enough long term? We'll argue about that next summer.
There you go.
Well, so what are the Cleveland Browns fans and the Cleveland area thinking about the Ravens this year? Are they looking at the Ravens as still the class of the AFC North, or do they see them as a flash in the pan and they're looking at the Steelers as their biggest competition?
I think there's a lot of people that are expecting some regression back. Can Lamar do it again? Probably not. That's not to say that he won't be very good again or an MVP caliber player again. But what he did last year, I'm not sure that's replicable either, to be honest with you. And I get a lot more of that from Browns fans, including my parents live in Cleveland. I'm from there originally. They were up this weekend and we were talking about it. And we talked about Baltimore some. And that was sort of my dad's take. Is like, they're good. I'm not sure that they can be as good again. And that's kind of the take that I get from the comment sections and the call-in shows and stuff like that. So they are clearly the best team on paper in the division, They have some losing Marshall Yanda hurts. Cleveland fans are very acutely aware of what losing good offensive linemen can do to a team. We went through that with Joe Thomas and several others before him. But there is nothing but begrudging respect for John Harbaugh, and I think that's something that he's earned. The fact that he's not a classless ass, I think, has a lot to do with that.
Good man.
There's been coaches, he's an easy guy to like. He's and he gets the benefit. He's the good Harbaugh for Cleveland fans who hate Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. And by the way, he can't coach at all. All the talent coaching went to John and that family, at least at the recent levels. I think most Clevelanders and myself, I'll put myself high on this list, respect the way that the Ravens have built a culture and have stuck to it. Dumping Earl Thomas, a lot of Browns fans were like, man, that's something that only a good team would do. Like Dallas would keep him and promote him. That's
front page news, baby.
Yeah, as soon as he was cut, you knew that the Cowboys and the Raiders were going to be the two teams courting him, and that's why those teams never win. That kind of and that was the take out of Cleveland, and even the Cleveland beat reporters, and some of them are not necessarily the most football acute, picked up on that. That's there's that, and if Browns fans have to root in a death match between Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they're going to root for Baltimore every time.
Nice. So let me ask you this: how do the Browns upset the Ravens in Week 1?
The way they did last year, run the ball a lot, ram it right down their throats, counter trays, power G, have two tight ends, if they have two tight ends that can block, and we're not sure about that. Get out there and lock up those linebackers. Make the wide receivers, by the way, are great blockers. That's something that they don't get credit for. Odell's a good blocker. Jarvis Landry's a bitch of a blocker, man. He's really, really good at it.
Those word in him.
Yeah, yes, he does. Those off-tackle runs, and they have two home run hitters in the backfield. That's how they're going to do it. Mix in some play action, which is something that Baker actually did pretty well last year. He's really good at selling the play action fake when he thinks about it, and they have weapons to do it. Stress the defense, but attack that middle of the field. There are questions there. Baltimore's good. I'm not going to say certainly not going to disparage the division champs, but I think if you're going to attack them, you attack them in the middle of the field and make them work outside in. I think that's something that the Browns are very well equipped to do. It's something that Tennessee was very equipped to do too. And
too soon, Jeff. Too soon.
Sorry, guys. Hey. Yeah, that was an interesting game.
That was surprising. Certainly surprising.
Yes, it was. But again, that's the style of team that's going to give Baltimore problems. And I think it's going to be a problem again this year.
I think that's why they bring in Calais, they bring in Derek Wolfe, they get two linebackers in the draft in the first and third round. They're certainly trying to address that because they realize that was definitely their biggest weakness.
Yeah. So let me ask you, how is the rookie linebacking looking?
Oh, man. What'd you call him?
So we got blueberry marmalade and crunchy peanut butter. That's Malik Harrison. We've heard nothing but good stuff, especially from Matt. He talking about – so Matt, Glenn gives a hard time to because he called middle linebackers the running back of the defense.
When I predicted them, they were definitely going middle in the first round.
He said no way.
We always give him a hard time about that. Yeah. But I think that – more so than just those guys is the beef up front with Calais. Even though he's getting older, he was still rated as the number one run defender. I mean, he's incredible. Obviously, Derek Wolfe's and Brandon Williams is still inside. You mentioned that running inside's always been tough against the Ravens, and now you bring in fast linebackers, youth at the linebacker position, which is where I think they lacked was athleticism at the linebacker position last year. Bringing in Bynes was a stopgap, but let's be honest, he's no burner. So I think that they've done enough, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that Coach Martindale talked about it's fun to watch Malik Harrison go downhill, but also his overall athleticism and his range will jump off the TV screen at you as well. So that's exciting to see as well. Now, I do want to follow up with this. What's your prediction on the game?
That's a tough one. So I'm actually doing I do the weekly picks for Real GM, and I was writing it as I got to you guys, and I haven't gotten to this game yet. So I will say It's tough to win on the road. It's tough with a new regime. I expect the Ravens to win. I do expect the Browns to be competitive in it. I think they're going to take some shots, honestly, and test the defense, and I think they'll hit on a couple. But I think just the way the defense is so banged up, it's new. We haven't seen it in action. They have embraced the linebacker as the running back of the defense quite clearly, because if you're going to need a depth chart to watch their linebackers, because right now their starting linebackers are Sione Takitaki and B.J. Goodson. Maybe Malcolm Smith plays a little. Maybe Tay Davis plays some.
Is Matt gone for the year?
No, he'll be back.
Okay.
He had a bad hyperextension of his knee. He's actually been riding the bike at practice, so he's on his way. He's week to week. I would expect him back by October, which is good because he's the most talented linebacker on the team, but he's a fifth-round pick from a year ago who played really, really well for like 2 games and coasted the rest of the year off of it, and did not play well down the stretch at all. They have definitely loaded the defensive front has got to impact the game. They've got to be able to contain Lamar and the run game. I think they'll have some wins on it, but I think Lamar's going to get some off too. So I'll go with the Ravens by. I really like your kicker too, so we'll give it an 8-point game.
All right.
I think that's what the line's at right now. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think I saw 7.5 or 8, so
okay.
We'll go right with that. I wouldn't bet on it, but if I had to, I'd probably put it on the Ravens to just cover, and that's more of a reflection on the Browns just being so new and not playing together yet. I think that continuity is going to be a huge asset for Baltimore in the first couple of weeks, and that's something that Cleveland doesn't have that advantage.
Yeah, no. Absolutely.
Later on in the year will be a fun rematch.
Yeah, that second game is going to be interesting. There's no doubt about that.
Let's
and
hope
same
it's
with
meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Stefanski being an absolute mess, I don't know how Cleveland's not competitive this year.
I really can't see that. I just can't. Is it going to be great?
I mean, maybe if Conklin gets hurt, which he has in his pet, maybe if Conklin gets hurt and Wills is either
they're not. This is not a deep football team. That's for sure. So if the injuries hit and they're hitting the defense already, that's going to be a real problem. But
or maybe Baker just can't pull the truck up the hill.
Oh man, look, he looks for any opportunity to take a shot at Baker.
So they did upgrade the backup.
Yeah, I told he's going to be starting week 10.
Oh
man,
this guy, Jeff. Let me tell you,
I will bow to you if that happens because I really don't see it. But I will tell you, there are a couple of people that cover the Browns on a daily basis who would love for that to happen. But on the flip side,
is that a personal issue? Is that a personal thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one of them called him a bleeping midget on a hot mic on the Browns' own radio network.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's really not good.
Oh, jeez.
But to give you an idea of where Cleveland is, they still credential that guy.
Wow.
They're baby steps, man. The team's getting better. But when I talk to you guys in Baltimore, like I covered the Lions and the Browns. Before that, I covered the Texans. I'm very familiar with the Colts when they imploded. So it's just like I look at an organization like that and I have envy because they do things right, and the Browns are trying. God, they're trying, and they are getting there, but they ain't there yet.
Are you envious of like reporters and people who cover like the Patriots? Are you like, gosh, you guys don't know how good you got it?
I am. So I'm good friends with Teron Davenport, who used to cover the Ravens. He now covers the Titans. I'm like, God, you fell uphill, dude. How does that happen? And before that, he actually covered the 49ers for a bit. They were terrible then, but like, man, come on. I need to cross. So I live on Lake Michigan. I live like right across the water from Milwaukee. I'm like, I need to cross the way, cover Green Bay for a year maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Although I think they're honestly on the way down, so maybe that's not
that might be a concern. You'll get over there, and that'll be their signal. All right, Jeff's here.
That's probably true. Maybe
time to tank.
Yeah,
for Cincinnati. I really like Joe Burrow. Maybe I'll be a Bengals fan for a little bit.
There you go. Well,
I can't do that. No self-respecting Clevelander could even mention that. So
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show, man. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your insight. We're really excited for this week 1. I'm sure you are as well, for the whole world to take their time off, take their mind off what's going on and dive into football for a couple hours and kind of escape. So why don't you let our fans know where they can find you, and we'll be sure to put that information in the description.
Yeah, cool. You can find me on Twitter at Jeff Risdon. That's Risdon. I run BrownsWire. I run LionsWire. You can find me at RealGM. I do a weekly picks and a weekly summary there. Footballrealgm.com. Please check that out. It's a lot of fun. They've been paying me for a very long time to do it. And that's something that I love doing. So please check that out. If you're ever bored on a Sunday morning, the Ravens are on a bye. I do a radio show from 10 to noon on the ESPN radio affiliate in Grand Rapids too. Live from a casino sponsored by a brewery. It's the best way to spend a Sunday morning.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, thanks again, man. Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Have a good one.